The Grant mansion stood like a monument to time, vast, silent, and dripping with wealth. Golden chandeliers hung like frozen stars, and portraits of stern ancestors lined the walls, their painted eyes following every step. When Isabella Carter walked through those tall double doors for her first day of work, clutching worn gloves and a crumpled letter of employment, she never imagined her life was about to change forever. She hadn't come here by choice, but by desperation. Her little girl, Emma, was sick, hospital bills piling higher than her hope. The job was supposed to be a blessing, not the beginning of a revelation that would shatter her world. Assigned to the West Wing, Isabella cleaned quietly, moved carefully, and prayed no one would notice the worry in her eyes. But one afternoon, while dusting the portraits in the grand hall, her gaze froze on one face, a familiar face framed in gold. Her heart stopped. The man in the painting wasn't just anyone. It was him, the man she once loved. The man who vanished 5 years ago, the father of her child. Tears welled in her eyes as the name Alexander escaped her trembling lips. He had once promised forever, then disappeared without a word. For years, she'd cursed his silence, believing he'd abandoned her and their unborn child. Now his face stared back at her from the walls of her employer's mansion. Her new boss, Mrs. Eleanor Grant, was a woman of poise and distance, elegant, commanding, and always composed. She spoke little and expected perfection. Isabella thought it best to stay invisible, but fate had other plans. Days passed like whispers until one afternoon, Mrs. Grant entered the hall as Isabella was cleaning the portrait. "He was a fine man," she said softly. Isabella's heart thudded. "My son. He died in a car accident. 5 years ago. 5 years ago. The same year Alexander disappeared. The same year Emma was born." Isabella's hand shook. Her voice broke. "Ma'am, why is my daughter's father in your portrait?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mrs. Grant turned pale, staring between Isabella and the portrait, disbelief flickering across her face. "Your daughter?" she whispered. "Yes," Isabella sobbed. "Her name is Emma. She's 5. She looks just like him." Eleanor Grant's composure melted. She stepped closer, eyes glistening. "He never told us. He never said he had someone." Her voice cracked under the weight of loss and revelation. They moved to the parlor, where sunlight poured through tall windows like gentle truth. Isabella told her everything, how she'd met Alexander in a small-town bakery, how he'd promised to return, how she'd waited until hope ran dry. Mrs. Grant listened in silence, tears falling freely for the son she lost and the family she never knew he'd left behind. At last, she took Isabella's trembling hand and whispered, "Then Emma, she's my granddaughter." That moment broke years of grief. Days later, Mrs. Grant asked to meet Emma. Isabella hesitated, terrified of judgment, but when the little girl saw the elegant woman, she smiled shyly and ran into her arms as if she'd known her forever. Eleanor wept, holding Emma close. "You have his eyes," she whispered. And just like that, the cold mansion came alive again, with laughter, warmth, and second chances. From that day forward, Mrs. Grant made sure Isabella never struggled alone again. She paid for Emma's treatment, found her the best school, and gave both of them a home. "You're part of this family now," she said. Alexander would have wanted it this way. The halls that once echoed with emptiness now carried the sound of love reborn. And every evening, as the sunset bathed the mansion in gold, Isabella would look up at Alexander's portrait and smile, not in pain, but in peace. Because sometimes, the greatest miracles begin with the simplest question. "Ma'am, why is my daughter's father in your portrait?"